Well, there's the pieces. Parts is parts. I don't know if I'm going to rebuild this or not. I did not. I flew this flight visual line of sight, basically, and had the GoPro on my hat, but the file was corrupt when it came back. I wished it wasn't, so you could have seen the flat spin this thing went into. But I can show you the video, and that's all I really have. There's no data flash logs for this flight controller, and the OSD avatar did not work correctly, which is another problem with this flight controller too. This little flight controller and this thing from the E-Wing is, well, I'm not going to lose my Sunday school language. I picked it up. I kept looking at things while the OSD information wasn't coming up. The walk snell was on the bottom, but it did that several times on the bench. That's why I switched over to the 9 volt, because the walk snell says it needs between 6 volts and 25.2 volts. When I was ready to go, I moved it up just a little more because I didn't know how much altitude it loses. Virtually none, I think. And off we go. Reed Maiden in the T1 Ranger, but I had hoped to do it with some telemetry in the form of OSD data. But I didn't want to unplug the battery, plug it back in, which is what I had to do on the bench. It just didn't come up intermittently. And that's what it did at the field. So I just flew it. I had the telemetry, that is the video, that was sufficient for me. I was watching the monitor, and I got a little disoriented right here. That's an irrigation ditch. That's not the river. I was paying attention to something else. I had two other pilots flying with me today. And here's where I really got in the monitor and decided, I'm not sure where I am, but I think I need to turn. So I turned, and then I started looking at those high voltage power lines and went, that's not the ones that are supposed to be behind me. Those are the ones in the field on the other side of the river. So I turned back to the left. These are my first orientation flights. This is the first chance I've technically had to look at this field from the air. You can see right in the left there where the dirt is. That's where we're standing. And right out here in front of me is where the high voltage takes a 90 degree. So I decided not to fly over them. We're right there on the left coming down that road. So when I got past this tower right here, I decided to put it in Q loiter. And when I did, it kind of pitched up strangely and then went into this flat spin. Because one of the motors, the right motor pitched up, but the left motor stayed in forward flight mode, which had happened before with this darn flight controller. Trying not to lose my Sunday school language with you guys. I tested it before I took off. Motors went down into forward flight, went back up into Q loiter. But right there, when I put it in Q loiter, it did what it had done before. One motor tipped up, one motor didn't. The airframe's a good airframe. I think this is a good airframe. Just the flight controller ain't worth the powder to blow it to kingdom come. So that's all the data I have. There's no data flash logs for this. There's no telemetry logs to the ground. And I didn't keep unplugging it, plugging it back in till the OSD data and the avatar, walk snell avatar came up. I figured I had the video and that was good enough. I don't know if I'm going to rebuild this thing. One of the bummers is the H743 wing is arriving Monday to replace this screwed up flight controller. I'll let you know later if I'm going to rebuild it or not. I'm just really worried that the intermittent movement of the motors up and down is somewhere in the wiring, because all the connectors, just like what I checked before, are pushed down in the flight controller. Maybe when I take it apart, I'll see a pin problem or something. All right, guys. Thank you.